We're out at the Lee Street Garden and we're putting in some fence posts and some sort of rabbit fencing that's going to go in low, and then the big deer fencing that we have will go in on top. But a few people, we've got Sarah and Nicole, and Lauren is waving over there and dancing, putting up posts. And so we've got that, and then we have the sort of the drip line path marked out in here, and it's getting there. So the garden is quite different now. Daniel and Sarah just left, and the three of us did a lot of work to wrap up some things that Nicole and Lorianne helped out with last week as well. We used these pieces of deck boards that I got from Rob and Lee, and some PVC pipe that I paid for, that we spent money on, so that's okay. But we do have the posts up. This horseshoe, it was found unearthed when everything was tilled up, and we went and have one at each corner, and then last week we dug a trench along here, and in the front we dug a trench too. But essentially what we did, this trench is for these. So each of these little markers, and you'll see them down the road, are going to be the spots where we'll put the tall deer fencing posts in, and we're going to use a conduit pipe, which is a heavy metal pipe, and then we're going to get some holes into it and mount our deer fencing onto it. So this PVC is actually sunk in the ground. These pieces are about 2 feet, so it goes at least a foot in the ground, and it has this up here, and it's this bracket here holds it to the deck boards, and this is one that's kind of more exposed, but this will be buried deeper and just kept it up so you can see it, and should provide a little better support for our posts. So you see up in the front we have the trench that we're going to be putting this fence in. I'll explain a little bit more about this fence. At the bottom, this is a rabbit fencing essentially. So at the bottom, it's 1 inch by 4 inch holes. You come up to here, it's 2 by 4, and here it's 4 by 4. So the premise is that the little bitties can get through the big holes. So you have that down low, and we actually, by putting this in a trench, hopefully deter some digging, although they can always dig further. You'll see these boards here are marking places where we're going to have holes for more of the posts, and the front spacing is about 70 feet across, and the sides are closer to 85 or so. So a lot of progress here, and before too long we'll be able to get planting. Gorgeous day, probably in the 60s, low 60s or so, and you can see the weeds are starting to pop up. So welcome to the bright, sunshiny Lee Street Community Garden, the Lee Street Communal Garden, whatever. We've got quite a bit going on out here. Of course, we have all our very pretty rows and paths. We've got some fencing up, which I showed you, the rabbit fencing, which goes all the way along, and it's hard to see, but it goes all the way across the front also, which is pretty cool. And so outside of that, we just need to get the fencing finished up, which will mean putting in another trench along here. These are markers for the different spots where the deer fencing and rabbit fencing are going to get their pieces of wood and PVC to support the poles, and then of course put the deer fencing up. So pretty excited about all this. Here's some more rabbit fencing. You know who paid for this rabbit fencing? You guys did. Yeah, that's pretty awesome, so thank you. And Lee paid for the wood, Lee and Rob. it was just extras. The end.